Hey everyone, it's Kristen. We just finished talking about Wizard 87, so I thought it'd be fun to talk about this. It's X-Men 1/2. Basically, the 1/2 issues were issues that Wizard did in collaboration with the various comic book companies, just for fun. Like you could send away for it, and they would, obviously you pay for it, and they'd send it back to you. And these stories that Wizard did have, nothing to do with the continuity of the series. Like this one, like you could read this one as a standalone issue, and you wouldn't miss anything, basically. Well, anyway, you'll see. So, in the 90s, 1991, when X-Men 1 was released, that was when Jim Lee started his run, which was a very successful run. X-Men 1 had 5 variant covers, and we talked about the whole variant cover issue before. It was one of the highest selling comic books of all time because of those 5 variants. Not because they had that many readers, but because of all the variants. Because people thought, as I did, because I don't think I have all 5 variants. I have at least 3 though. People thought that they would be worth a lot of money someday. So they bought into the hype of that, which I did too. Speaking of that, so I have this one that I read and look at. And they actually packaged it really nice. Like this is a non-bendable envelope. And they put it in a sleeve. And here's the certificate of authenticity signed by the president of Marvel at the time, Bob Harris, or the editor-in-chief, and the publisher, the Wizard publisher. They came in these nice sleeves. This is the one that I don't touch. And then, I have this one that I do read. Anyway, so I was one of those people that bought into the hype, and I thought this would be worth something someday. So I thought, well, cool. I'll just go ahead and, buy 2. Anyway, it happens, you think something's going to be worth a lot someday, and it just doesn't turn out that way, and that's okay. Anyway, I just thought this was a fun issue. If you look at the cover, it looks like they're in medieval times. And it kind of, the story itself reminds me of Uncanny X-Men 153, where called Kitty's Fairy Tale, where Kitty tells Ileana, Klaus's little sister, who was 7 at the time, and then a couple issues later, she is like 14 in issue Uncanny X-Men 160. And, I actually did a video on that. So if you want to check that out, go ahead and you'll learn why she jumped from 7 to 14 in just a couple issues. Anyway, so Kitty was telling Ileana, child Ileana, a story, a fairy tale basically, involving the X-Men. And hence the issue is called Kitty's Fairy Tale. The X-Men animated series also did a episode that was based on the fairy tale premise, and it was called Jubilee's Fairy Tale Theater, and she was telling this fairy tale involving X-Men characters to a group of kids. And of course, this happened in 1998, so it was, of course, after both of those. But still this, it's a fun issue just to read. A standalone issue has nothing to do with the other issues of X-Men or anything, but it's a fun thing to have, and I bet not a ton of people have this issue. Okay, so we open, and you can see Nightcrawler right here. He's not hard to spot. And then you can kind of see Storm up here in this window. And here's Marrow right here. And so this kind of reminds me of a scene from Aladdin. There's the market, the bazaar, people are selling their wares. There's girls calling to passerbys in the window, girls. And so it says that Nightcrawler is a member of the Elfin Warriors, and they spell that with a U instead of an E to, you know, kind of be creative. And so you see that here is Marrow. She's a beggar, and she's asking him for some coins because he looks pretty rich, and I think it's because he's like a mercenary for hire type of person. You can see he has a whole bag of coins, and then you assume they're all gold coins because he throws a couple gold coins in her cup. And then she steals it, and then he steals it back. So I don't know, most of you might not know who Marrow is. She is actually a Morlock. She is kind of the adopted daughter of Callisto, leader of the Morlocks. And the Morlocks are important because in issue Uncanny X-Men 170, Storm fought Callisto for leadership of the Morlocks. She won, but, you know, she relinquished her title. And also, the Morlocks are the subject of the Mutant Massacre, where the Marauders came into the Morlock tunnels and slaughtered a bunch of them at Mr. Sinister's direction. And the Trial of Gambit is all about how he was the one that led the Marauders into the Morlock tunnels, and so basically allowing the Morlocks to be slaughtered. And that was a huge deal that was revealed later. The Morlock Massacre occurred in issue Uncanny X-Men 210 to 11, and Gambit's trial was until Uncanny X-Men 350 or 351. And then, of course, he didn't even appear until 265. And of course, they wove this all back. And of course, they could have just, you know, made it all up on the spot, but still, it still made for an interesting story because, you know, Gambit's always, even from his onset, been mysterious, aloof, you know, not much is known about him, that sort of thing. So they thought it'd be a cool thing to throw a wrench in his life, so to speak, and more drama for the X-Men. And here you can see Marrow, you can see bones sticking out of her face, actual bones, and that's her power, is accelerated bone growth. And she uses that to, you know, shield herself, you know, the soft parts, like armor, basically. It's basically armor. And she can also, pull a sword made out of bone, or a dagger, or whatever she wants to, out of herself, out of her skin. I mean, it's at this point, it's uncontrollable and it's painful. Later, with the help of scroll technology, she gains control over it. But at this point, she doesn't have control over it. And when she appeared in Cable 15, I think, in 1994, she was very hostile, very vicious, which is understandable because she's stuck with this basically curse. And here she's only known life as a Morlock, and then she's trying to live above the surface. And she's disfigured. The rest of the X-Men, with the exception of you know, in this issue, Nightcrawler can pass as regular humans. But she, you know, with this huge bone on her face, she definitely can't. So I think part of it is just resentment at the rest of the world. Anyway, so, you know, Marrow figures out that he took the money back from her that she stole, and then you see Shadowcat approaching Storm, and Shadowcat is a ambassador of the Queen, the Legion of the Fairy, which they spell it PH here, another kind of elfin with a U kind of thing. And Shadowcat calls Storm Goddess of the Winds, which, you know, she's been called a goddess many, many, many times. I like her outfit. Storm always wears the coolest outfits. She has the most fun clothes, in my opinion. It's just fun. It's more fantasy. obviously. And then Nightcrawler is actually looking for a man that lurks in the shadows, and because Logan here wants to hire him for a job, and he needs someone of his particular abilities. You know, he can jump in and out of the shadows, and jump through space, that sort of thing. He needs someone with stealth, basically, and that is definitely Nightcrawler. And Logan has been hired by the town elders, we find out, to rid the town of here. And Storm, actually, we learned that has been approached by the people in the town because their husbands and their sons have been taken away by this dark wizard. And there's rumors that he's using these people for his army, his own personal army. So, and Storm says, even though she's a Shadowcat, even though I'm not a wizard, even though I'm not a goddess, you know, I can't let these people down that have this such faith in me. And so she, you know, she goes, will you join me in my quest? And Kitty says yes. And the town, we learned from Logan and Nightcrawler, is also guarded by Ruskin sentries. Ruskin, like not Russian, but Ruskin. Like I said, another kind of play on words. And of course that would be Colossus. And you see here they are going to the wizard's castle. And here you can see Marrow trailing them because she wants to get back the money that she stole from Nightcrawler, that he stole back from her, and she wants to steal it back from him. And so she's trailing them, and then they confront her, and then Colossus confronts all of them because he thinks that they're working. And then Storm and Shadowcat happen by, and they're like, well, because Wolverine and of course Nightcrawler say, well, we're not his pawns, we're not working for him, no. And so Storm says, well, it sounds like we should all just join up then. It sounds like we're all on the same, working towards the same cause. So we should just join forces. And Marrow says, you know, like I said, she is mad at the world, basically. She feels resentful. She's like, this is not my fight. And Wolverine says, don't be stupid, this is everybody's fight, which sounds like something he would say. I mean, because, you know, he's usually yelling at somebody. And the Dark Wizard appears and says, you guys should just join me. And of course Storm says, no, we just want the townspeople and we'll leave you alone. And he says, well, you know, I'm using them for my personal army, so, you know, I'm borrowing them, he says, so you can't have them. And he says, well, since you're here, and then he tells his army to attack them. And so the fight ensues. It's hard to describe the fight in words. And you see in here, in this panel, that Nightcrawler notices something when he teleports, when he jumps. It doesn't look like quite right. See? From here to here. So he says that. He says, hey, something's not right here. Like when I jumped, I sensed a disturbance. I saw something weird. And Kitty says, the same thing happened when I was phasing. I saw like this shimmering, like of reality. So obviously it's an illusion, they figure out. And so Storm says, well, focus on the Dark Wizard. This must be his doing. So if we take him out, then this should end. So they go after the wizard, and it's revealed to be Mesmero who's controlling everybody. Okay. So a lot of you might not know who Mesmero is. He appeared in X-Men, Uncanny X-Men 49, and he has the power to, if you lock eyes with him, he can control you. He can make you do whatever he wants. He can make you see whatever he wants you to see. He can actually implant memories, take memories away, because he does that a lot. He will use someone and then erase their memory that he's used them, which I guess is actually really useful because you would never know what you did. Anyway, but as cool as his powers are, and his powers do work on telepaths. As cool as his powers are, he's always been like maybe like a B or C level X-Men villain. Because you know, oh yeah, I'm wearing my Xavier Institute for Higher Learning shirt today, since we're talking about X-Men. I thought it was appropriate. Anyway, so Mesmero. Yeah, he's always been kind of like a B or C list X-Men villain because not that many people know about him. Like, if I mention to, you know, comic book people or people that have seen the movies at least, if I mention Magneto, Apocalypse, Sabretooth, or Juggernaut, people think, oh, X-Men villain. But you mentioned Mesmero, and people are like, I don't know who that is. And it's funny because he actually tangled with Spider-Man before. So, and Mesmero and Mysterio, who is like one of the Sinister Six a lot of times, they're similar sounding and they have similar powers. Because Mysterio, you know, deals in illusions, projections, things like that. So people might get those two confused if they have no idea who Mesmero is. And you can see that pretty much, like, he takes control of Nightcrawler and Marrow, but it doesn't matter because look, here's Kitty, and she knocks them out basically with one blow. So, like I said, B, C level villain. And plus, you know, this comic book could only be like 20 pages, so they couldn't like drag it out like they would for, you know, a fight against, like I said, one of the A-list X-Men villains. And so they realize, see, there they are in their normal X-Men costumes, and they realize that it was all just an illusion. And the people are waking up. And so they grab Mesmero, who's unconscious, and say, Wolverine says, we better get out of here because no matter who is responsible for this, we always get the blame. Because, of course, you have to remember that they're outcast. They're not heroes like the Avengers. Like, people see the Avengers and they're like, oh my gosh, you know, can I have your autograph? Can I take a selfie? You know, well, now they would because selfies are a thing. But with the X-Men, nobody does that. They're not heroes. They're outcasts. People are afraid of them because they're different. So, and then they have like sketch pages and talking about like how they came, you know, across or came up with the concept ideas for how the characters should look. And Colossus is supposed to be a sentry. So he has, you know, a big battle axe and a huge sword. And makes sense because he, you know, he's the metal one. He looks like he's wearing armor. And then, you know, Marrow has like a hood, so because she's supposed to be a beggar and a thief, so no one can recognize her. And Nightcrawler, you know, more towards his swashbuckling, you know, because he does use a sword from time to time in the comics, so that makes sense. And then Wolverine, it says the artist was actually inspired by Braveheart. You can see the braids in his hair. He was even going to have like blue war paint across his face in place of his mask, but they thought that might be a little much, a little too coincident, you know, a little too much of copying of the movie. And then, like, I saw this page, and I'm like, oh my gosh, so Wizard used to have its own convention. Like, I never got to go, of course, because when I started getting Wizard magazines, I wasn't that old. So, like, the idea of me going to a convention across the country, of course, that would never happen. My parents would not be okay with that. But I just, yeah, it's so crazy that they used to have their own convention, like, and it was huge. And yeah, now they're not even around anymore. Like, it's amazing how things change. It's because it was a magazine, and magazines are kind of fallen by the wayside with, you know, everything that's available now, unfortunately, which I always loved the Wizard magazines. That's why I do so many videos from them, because it's fun to look back and see what was popular at the time and just what was going on back then. It's just interesting to me. I just really enjoy it. So, I mean, honestly, I'm pretty sure this was the only Wizard one half that I sent away for, because it was X-Men, and you know me, I love X-Men. But Wizard also like gave out free ones in their magazines sometimes. Like I have a Deadpool 0 that came from Wizard. And it definitely lives up to the movies in terms of the craziness and the kind of like ew factor, I will say. I was shocked that they put that in a comic book, a lot of it. Anyway, it was, I mean, it was crazy. Like, I might have to do a video about that since I mentioned that now. And Deadpool's a really popular character, and some of you out there might be curious what that was. Oh goodness, it was crazy. That's all I'll say for now. So I hope you enjoyed this look at this Wizard 1.5 X-Men story. Like I said, I try to pull out some of my more obscure stuff, some stuff that not everyone has or has heard of or seen, because of course the new stuff, I feel like most people, you know, have access to it. And I'm sure a lot of the back issues are digitized now too, but most people might not know about them. So I like to pull them out and do those as well. Just, you know, my favorite stories and such. Well, as always, this has been fun. I appreciate you, you know, letting me talk about my passion, and I hope you will join me for the next video. Until then, I'll see you later. Bye.